with REM sleep, which is a different state. Night terrors are basically panic and anxiety attacks that are very, very frightening, and they usually can wake a person up. What the difference is there's no real story to it, there's no real meaning to it other than just a panic attack and you know you're very scared. If it was a nightmare and you woke up, well then you would know what was going on in the dream and what was the scary part of the dream, and again it would be a different part of the sleep cycle as you go through. So if we take a look at stage 3, your body then cycles back in the first stage anyway, back into stage 2 and into REM sleep. And again, this is for your average teenager. A normal sleep cycle lasts about 90 minutes. In the end of that 90 minutes, there will then be cycling back and forth. Let's examine REM sleep or paradoxical sleep a little closer. Again, it's paradoxical because the muscles are relaxed and the body is active. The heart rate increases, the breathing is more rapid, the eyes dart behind the lids, and there is a loss of muscle tone. One thing that you need to be aware of is that regardless of whether a person is dreaming or not, or whether the dream is of sex or not, which we'll talk about later on in the dream section, there is going to be some genital erection or vaginal lubrication during REM sleep, even when the dreams are not sexual in nature. All right? And finally, as the sleep cycle continues, REM sleep gets longer and longer. Earlier I referred to the sleep function of the suprachiasmatic nucleus being located in the hypothalamus of your brain, which we covered in the limbic system in Unit 3. The suprachiasmatic nucleus basically helps us fall asleep by its role in regulating melatonin. Now, a lot of you guys are familiar with melatonin. It's a drug that you can get over the counter that helps people fall asleep. So, as light comes into the eyes, the suprachiasmatic nucleus basically reacts to that light. And the pineal gland, which is a tiny pine cone shaped gland right next to the hypothalamus, will then suppress or produce or suppress melatonin. During the daytime, light actually suppresses melatonin, so people are not sleepy. But when that light goes off, when there is no light, then melatonin is actually produced. There's some research that says that part of our problem as human beings is that we are living in a world where there's so much light everywhere that we are actually sleeping less. As a matter of fact, that is a fact. Well, human beings are sleeping less than they did 100 years ago or even 20 years ago because of artificial light. The amount of light is detrimental to our sleep based on the function of, again, the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Again, a pair of cell clusters in the hypothalamus controls circadian rhythm, and in response to light, you need to remember as the light comes on, suprachiasmatic nucleus decreases serotonin. As the light goes off, melatonin is increased, and melatonin is what helps us fall asleep. In looking at the sleep theories and wrapping up Module 23 today, we actually have 5 different theories as to why people sleep. None of them are particularly any better than any other. All right, so you do need to know all of them. So the first one is what we call the protection or preservation theory. It's based on evolutionary psychology, and the idea is that back in the time where there was no artificial light, before lights were invented with electricity and so forth, and even kerosene lights before then, before there was light, it was dangerous to be out at night. So consequently, from an evolutionary time period, you wouldn't be out during nighttime because there's little value. You're not going to be able to do much hunting or gathering or anything else, and there's considerable danger. The second theory of sleep talks about the restoration and repair process. The body wears out during the day, and sleep is basically needed to put back into shape, and that has to do with how we actually synthesize the proteins in our body as we take in food and restore our energy processes. It also involves putting together old and new material from our lives and making connections, but that part really belongs in a different theory. So let's just focus on the restoration and repair of needing rest because we're putting our body back into shape. For theory number 3, again, these are not in a perfect order, so you may need to change them on your PowerPoint. Probably you've already realized that. Is restoring and rebuilding your memory. It seems that a lot of research from cognitive psychologists are showing that as we sleep, it helps restore and rebuild our fading memories of the day's experiences. In other words, guys, it helps us actually consolidate our memories from the day. Now that will go hand in hand with the theory of dreams, which will be coming later on. Sleep theory number 4 says that sleep actually aids us in creative thinking. We can actually go through the annals of history and find people who have had enormously successful ideas while actually asleep, technically in dreams. Elias Howe thought of the idea for the sewing needle for his sewing machine. Robert Louis Stevenson had the plot of the book Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde from a dream that he had, and Professor Kickley actually had the idea of the structure of benzene as a chemist in a sleep period. Our 5th and final theory is growth process. This is the idea that the pituitary gland, again right next to the limbic system, unit 3, endocrine system, which controls all the other glands, the so-called master gland, secretes a growth hormone. And as we age, we release less of this hormone and spend less time in deep sleep. So it has a growth process. That brings us to the end of our first section, Module 23. Please stay tuned for our next section called Module 24, which again will be sleep deprivation, sleep disorders, and dreams. Thank you.